This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast where we take a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morse, and this week we preview the men's and women's rowing seasons. The women are looking to defend their 2015 NCAA championship. We'll take a look back at the NCAA championships for Bates swimming and talk to our Bobcats of the week. Women's swimming Sara Daher and Ben Rosen of men's tennis. All that and more coming up on the Bates Bobcast. Women's swimming sent 9 student athletes to the NCAA championships this past week, and Riley Ewing represented the men's team at nationals as well. The Bates women finished 12th in the nation out of 55 teams. They were led by senior Lindsay Progovis, who finished with 6 All-American honors, and junior Sara Daher, who also tallied 6 All-American finishes. Daher's best finish was in the 200 IM, where she came in second in the nation. She becomes only the second Bates swimmer to finish as a national runner-up, and she now has 17 All-American finishes to her credit, the most ever for a Bates student athlete. For her efforts, Sara Daher is our female Bobcat of the week.
Your very first day at Nationals this year, you get second place in the 200 IM. The only other Bates swimmer to ever get second place at Nationals is your assistant coach, Vanessa Williamson. So how cool was that?
It was actually really awesome. So we actually ended up taking a picture like right after my race, which I think is on the Facebook page. It was a really crazy race, to be honest. Nothing I had ever anticipated going into it, and so it was really nice to come out with that type of finish, I guess.
So what made the race crazy?
I don't know. I think this entire meet was really more about racing than it was about times. I know I was talking to Peter about this and how we were kind of surprised that no one was like breaking a ton of national records. People were adding time like crazy, even the ones who didn't particularly taper for conferences. So they were a little more rested coming into this meet. And so I guess we were kind of surprised as to why people weren't dropping huge amounts of times and breaking all these records. And so it just came down to like getting your hand on the wall first and not necessarily about what time you were going. And so like for me, like that race wasn't even a best time for me, even in the finals. So it was kind of like, how is it that I, didn't place second in years past and didn't go a best time, and now all of a sudden this year it happins. And so I guess it was just kind of a toss-up, but I mean, it worked out for the best. So.
Yeah, and the very next day, though, Bates did set a couple of program records, and including a relay team you were part of. Obviously, the relay teams are, again, very successful. What was that like, that dynamic? Multiple relays for you.
Yeah, it definitely added up in terms of swims throughout the week. So in terms of like exhaustion, it definitely got to that point where it became really exhausting towards the end of the week. And we actually ended up having to shuffle some relays around. We were having some, people were getting sick on our team a little bit. So that was a bit detrimental to kind of our strategy going into the meet. So we kind of had to change that while we were in the middle, which was fine because we have the depth to do that, which we're really fortunate to have that. And so, yeah, I mean, like, it was fun, though. I think people really enjoyed, getting to be, like, on a relay at nationals, like, with these women that you train with for, weeks and days and hours on end throughout the entire season. And so the morale is definitely there, especially in those races. And it's super awesome to be able to come back to finals and then swim in a relay with some really incredible teammates.
And, I guess from your perspective, or I guess from any Bates swimmer's perspective, the finals, I know there's like the top 8 and there's the consolation finals in most of the races. Yeah. Does it really matter to you guys which one you're in? Or, I mean, obviously you would love to be top 8, but like you get All-American either way, right?
True. Yeah. I actually think like the second, so the heat before the top 8, so like 9th through 16th is like a technically honorable mention All-American. But yeah, you technically are All-American anyway, but you also want to score as many points for the team as possible. And so you're automatically locked into the heat that you get into. So even if someone had the fastest time in the B consolation final, they'd still only score 9th. So especially when it's a scoring meet and you're trying to be, I think our program looks to be one of the top 10 teams in the country moving forward. And so, the more you can get into those top 8 finals, the better.
Well, 12th place this year, 11th place last year. I mean, both very good finishes. I mean, were you expecting about that a result, or were you not even anticipating any expectations about where you might place overall as a team?
I think we were probably hoping for a little bit better, and that, that could have just been due to, people getting sick, people not feeling well, and I thought people swam really well, and so sometimes stuff like that just happens, and it's not like, other teams deserve it more than we do. It just kind of happened that way. And we're also, like, in comparison to a lot of other teams, like, we're relatively small. Like, we only have 9 women, whereas in a lot of these teams, especially like Emory and Kenyon and Denison, they're bringing like a full 18 women on that squad. And so, numbers definitely help, especially when you're trying to gain as many points as possible. And so I don't think we were going in with too much expectation, but I think we were really pleased with the overall result.
And then obviously some of your teammates did very well also. Lindsay Progovis got a bunch of All-Americans as well. How cool is that to see?
It was awesome, especially because we had 4 senior women on our team. And so for them to swim really well, especially at like their last competitive collegiate meet, was super awesome. Just to watch them have so much fun and to swim really well. And to just like enjoy the experience with them, especially since it was their last time. So yeah, it was great.
Now you as a junior, not your last time, you got one more coming up. So off season, what do you do in terms of your training? I mean, do you take any time off right now or not?
Yeah, I mean, I got kind of hit back with reality, especially coming back to the snow and the amount of schoolwork. And March is always a crazy month for Bates College in general. And so for right now, I'm trying to focus on academics, and so I'll probably take about a week off or so from the pool. Just give me some time mentally to kind of check out from Tarbell and then kind of get back into it until I leave for the end of the semester. So maybe ramp back up, start doing some lifting, do some running, do some other sorts of activities just to like keep the mind fresh, get the body moving. And then I'll probably be training back at home over the summer with the club team that I've been with for, however many years it's been. So yeah, that's kind of what I look towards to do for the summer.
And then looking at your future in terms of events you'd be swimming, are there any other events that you'd like to, I guess, work on or swim more, or how in terms of what you're looking to improve on, I guess, for your senior year?
Yeah, I think it'll depend. I think it'll be interesting with the freshmen that we have coming in. So we have some really talented recruits that are coming in for the class of 2020, which I think will be a tremendous help, not only just like individually, but also for relays. We can make several different combinations with that. And so I guess for me, I haven't really decided that. It could be fun to swim something different. I'm not sure if that's something I want to do yet. But I mean, I guess looking to improve in some of the little things, like working more on my underwaters, doing more butterfly sets for sure, help my AM get stronger, working on my breaststroke a little bit more. So I guess it's more like fine-tuning and just making sure I have a consistent base coming into next year.
Yeah, you touched on the recruits coming in without naming anyone specific, obviously, but we'll talk about in general. I mean, you've been with this program now 3 years, and the success the last 2 has been outstanding. Yeah. Have you noticed that talent coming in increasing, the level in terms of, the talent of the swimmers?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it will only continue to improve. But I also think that it's not just the people that are coming in, but it's also people who are already on the team that have like consistently improved throughout their career. And a clear example is like the 4 women, Melissa, Whitney, Caroline, and Lindsay, who were seniors this year and made it to nationals and have been there and scored so many points for us and have just been fantastic teammates. And so to have that kind of leadership and have that foundation, I think, is helpful in moving the program forward.
All right, well, we're looking forward to next year already. Congrats again on a great performance at Nationals. Sara Daher, our female Bobcat of the week.
Thank you very much.
The women's lacrosse team split a pair of games this past week, defeating Roger Williams 13-4 on Tuesday, and taking third-ranked Trinity to the wire in a 6-5 road loss on Saturday. Speaking of rankings, the women's lacrosse team is moving on up to 13th in the country, according to the Intercollegiate Women's Lacrosse Coaches Association. The men's lacrosse team took on Trinity in the Bobcats' home opener on Saturday, and Bates won 13-8 to move to 5-1 on the year. Senior Jack Allard scored 4 goals in the win.
I thought that was a really good win for us, especially in NESCAC opponent. In the home opener, it was really fun, especially we got new jerseys this year. We came out looking nice, and we felt great. I think we started off a little slow, but near the end of the game, especially I think the third quarter, we really started picking it up, both on defense and offense.
I know obviously last year a breakthrough year, first ever NCAA tournament bid. This year you're ranked in the top 10 in the country. How are you guys dealing with kind of like the expectations, if you will?
Yeah, that's something that we talked about in the beginning of the season, that there was a lot of preseason hype on us, and we just want to take it one day at a time, work really hard. We try not to look too much into the rankings and look at each opponent as they come up.
And then this week you've got 2 games, non-conference Wednesday against Keene State, a team we played twice last year. What do you remember about them?
So yeah, we played them. I played them every year here, and last year we played them twice. Both times we won, but the second time that we played them in the playoffs, they had been in the playoffs before, and we had never been there. So it was definitely a hard-fought game. They're very skillful. We know that their offense is very fast and very efficient. But I have a lot of I can rely on our defense a lot, because those guys are really why we're good this year. I mean, Joe Feria in the goal stops a lot of saves for us, which is awesome. And I think it's just about being efficient on our offense as well.
And then another home game Saturday against Williams. And you mentioned off the air the one NESCAC team you haven't beaten during your time here. So how fired up are you guys for that game?
Yeah, that one will definitely be personal for us. We, as a senior class, is the one team that we have not beaten yet, and I don't think a lot of senior classes can say that. So we're trying to get that one, and I think that'll mean a lot to us.
And then, from your perspective, your role on the team, obviously you're on offense and whatnot. I mean, you mentioned defense being the key to success. How does the great defense help out your offense?
Oh yeah, well I was saying this to Joe last week. I think in practice leading up to the Trinity game, we scored maybe 5 goals on them. Those guys are so good that they bring the best out in us as an offense. I have to shoot very efficiently in practice to even score on them. So I think that really helps all of us when it comes game time.
I read that Joe tried to score in the game.
Oh, yeah.
What happened there?
I guess the Trinity had a 10-man ride, meaning the goalie comes out of the goal to pick up an attackman, and the time was running down. You have 30 seconds to get it over, so Joe looked over, saw the empty net, and shot it right at the goal. He actually, unfortunately, missed, but I was there to back it up, so it was a successful clear, so it was a really good play, actually.
Nice. And then you personally, how have you seen the lacrosse program grow since you were a first year? You're a senior now.
Yeah, it really has grown in a very big way. My freshman year, we were 500, 7-7, and we felt really good about that. That was a very good season for us. We made the NESCAC tournament and lost to Tufts. The next year was one of the worst seasons for sure, and I think we took that personally, and as a class, when I became a junior, our junior class, and then the seniors from last year, we wanted to change the program, and I think it clearly showed with the hard work and effort that we put in. And then going into this year, we're trying to kind of get that same momentum that we had at the end of last year.
Yeah, because last year it's like halfway through the year a light went on or something. What happened there?
Yeah, well, I think a big part of that was we got Charlie Fay back from injury, and he kind of surprised the NESCAC and other teams, and he came out there, which actually opened up the door for myself and some other offensive guys to score as well, because once other teams start scouting him, they kind of overplay, and then suddenly the door opens up for other guys, so it's great. And I think we use that to move into this year as well.
Yeah, and talking to Coach Lasagna, he talks about the importance of watching film on the other team. How much film study do you do yourself?
Personally, I definitely look at film every time we have access to see a lot of the games. So I always try and watch myself and see what I can change and what I did well to see what I can keep doing moving forward. I mainly watch offense, but my roommate Dave Capolini, who's also a captain, watches the defensive plays, so that I get the rundown from both sides, so that we can move forward and correct the bad things and keep doing the good things.
Yeah, last question for you, I guess. Moving forward, good start, 5-1, obviously, nice start to the year. What are you looking to improve on, maybe specifically for you, and then also as a team?
So for myself, I think this year I've really been trying to get my assist total up. I think I want to start distributing a little bit more. Guys like Kyle Weber and Charlie Fay usually finish a lot of those passes that I give it to them. So personally, that's what I've been trying to work on. And I think as a team, I think starting off games a little bit better, because I think we let teams stay in with us a little too long, and I think that kind of hurt us against Amherst. And I believe that if we come out firing and get up early, there's no way that anyone can stop us.
Well, 2 home games this week, Wednesday against Keene State, and then Saturday, big one against Williams. Jack Allard, thanks so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
With the victory, the men's lacrosse team is now 6th in the nation in the United States Intercollegiate Lacrosse Association poll. Our male Bobcat of the week is sophomore Ben Rosen. He plays at number 1 singles and number 1 doubles for the 23rd ranked men's tennis team, and they had quite a week, going 2-0 at the Blue-Gray Classic at the University of Mary Washington. Bates beat number 31 Swarthmore 7-2 on Friday, and tournament host number 21 Mary Washington 6-3 on Saturday. Rosen went undefeated at singles and doubles.
Joined by our male Bobcat of the week, Ben Rosen of the men's tennis team. A nice 2-0 week for you guys there in Virginia. How was the trip? Obviously, it worked out pretty well on the courts.
Yeah, it was a great trip. We started off the weekend with a good win over Swarthmore, who had a good season last year, and we really took control of doubles. We went up 2-1, and I think our singles was too deep that day, and we had a lot of tough matches, but we were able to pull through 7-2.
Yeah, and then obviously you followed that up with a nice win over Mary Washington also, but from your perspective, you're playing number 1 singles this year after playing number 5 last year as a first year. So what's that been transition been like for you?
It's been pretty tough. It's a big difference because obviously every match I'm tested, and that was the case last year too, but this year especially I have to bring my best game every day, and these guys they really want it as much as I do. So it's a big test, and we just have to outcompete our opponents. That's really our motto for the team.
Yeah, and then how do you prepare, I guess, for this season? I know there's a fall season for you guys.
Yep, we have a abbreviated fall season, which consists of 3 mini tournaments, and I think we really try to set our doubles lineup and try to understand what teams work, what teams don't work. In the fall, Chris was abroad, and so I didn't get a chance to experiment with him, but it was a good chance for us to really see where we're at level-wise.
Yeah, because you are playing at number 1 doubles also with Chris, who went to nationals last year in doubles with a different partner. So a new doubles partner for both of you. How's that chemistry working out so far?
It's doing really well. We kind of complement each other pretty nicely. We have different game styles completely on the court. Energy-wise, he's very, very intense, and so am I. But he really gets into it. And I'm more of a laid-back guy, but we're both intense. We're both competitive. He really takes control at the net. He makes it easy for me, so I just have to sit back at the baseline and watch him do his thing. But he's a really nice guy. I like playing with him.
I know we've talked about this with a couple of tennis players, but sometimes you're indoors, sometimes you're outdoors, depending on where you're at, who you're playing, what location. Which do you prefer, first of all, and what's the biggest challenge of each?
I'd say I prefer indoors, mainly because my serve is coming together pretty nicely. I could kind of hold serve easier indoors, and that's what we've been practicing on throughout the year. And so whenever we have to go outdoors, it's a pretty large transition. And I'd say the difficulty of going outdoors is that it's just a different game style. You really, there's an extra ball. You can't really put the ball away like you can indoors. And last year, one thing that definitely affected us was the wind, and it's hard to prepare for that, and that's definitely one of the toughest things about playing outdoors.
Now, you're from New York State, and but you decided obviously to come up here to Maine for school, so what attracted you to Bates?
Definitely the coach. Coach Gastingay was the main attraction because I could tell right away that he knew his stuff. He's a very he was a very good tennis player. He has extensive knowledge of the game, and I knew that. Also, I was looking for a small school with great academics, which Bates, of course, offered. And I met the team on my visit, and the guys who are now juniors and seniors. They're great guys, and they really pushed me to go to Bates, and I'm really glad that I did.
NESCAC play, basically, you already had one NESCAC game, right? And
Yep.
then you've got a bunch coming up. And so what do you remember last year from NESCAC play? What lessons do you take to this year?
Main lesson I'd say is that there's no easy matches.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter if the team's ranked in the lower end of the NESCAC rankings. Every match is a battle, and if you don't bring your A game, if you don't compete your hardest, then it's pretty easy to just not come out on top that day. But I've had some good memories of Merrill matches where the energy's very it's there, and the crowd's pretty loud, and I'm looking forward to playing our rivals like Bowdoin and Colby, and it's going to be exciting.
All right, Ben Rosen, our male Bobcat of the week. Thanks so much.
Great, thanks.
The women's team also participated in the Blue-Gray Classic over the weekend, and Olivia Vakala won 6-4, 6-2 at number 6 singles on Friday against 21st ranked Case Western Reserve. Although the women's team didn't win that match or matches against Mary Washington and the College of New Jersey over the weekend, a lot of the matches were very close, and the tough competition gives them great preparation for the return of NESCAC play next week. The baseball team took on Middlebury in a non-conference doubleheader this past Saturday, and the Bobcats won Game 1 2-1 behind the outstanding pitching of Connor Colombo. Eric Villanova's 2-run home run proved to be the difference in the game. It's the first home run of his career. Colombo tossed 6 innings of 2-hit ball, striking out 7 batters along the way for the victory. The lone run he allowed was unearned. In Game 2, Brendan Fox hit his first career homer, but Bates fell in extra innings by a score of 4-3. Then on Sunday, Bates dropped a high-scoring game to Husson on the road by a score of 9-7. Softball went to Florida for 10 games in 5 days this past week. Although Bates struggled in the circle on the trip, their offense was outstanding, with first-year Andrea Russo hitting .438, junior Maddie Inlow hitting .406, and senior Karen Lockhart hitting .382 with a home run. The defending NCAA champion women's rowing team is back in action this week, along with the men's team at the Murphy Cup this Saturday. We sat down with head coach Peter Steenstra to preview the 2016 rowing season.
Looking forward to getting some early competition is the biggest aspect of it. We can go from here all the way down to rowable water no matter what on any given year, which is why we make this commitment for such a big regatta. But it being real early, and this year being in Philadelphia, which is an old traditional course, kind of like the Head of the Charles course in Boston. The Schuylkill River is a traditional race course. There's a spot there where there's something called Boathouse Row, where there's a whole line of old boathouses. So for the rowers, it's kind of going to one of the 3 major rowing meccas in North America. It's a real treat to go down there and just see it. Yeah.
Nice. So, how much do you think the student athletes appreciate that history?
Oh, I think they do a lot. There aren't that many major rowing cities in the country. So we have a few kids who are from the Philadelphia area, so they obviously know about it. But it's fun for the Boston kids or from the kids that are from the West Coast who maybe have never even seen the place or certainly never raced there. So it's a good treat for them to be able to go down and see it. But obviously the focus really is the competition. They're looking to, we don't go down there with the expectation of winning everything, but we go down there with the expectation of performing well. And it's such a large regatta that I know that all of our crews will get 2 races. So they have a heat and then a final. And that's why, from a budgetary standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to do this kind of a trip.
Sure, and then I know we were talking about how last year was the latest spring ever. Obviously, it didn't hurt you guys. You won the national title. But this year is the earliest spring ever. So what's that been like this year to have so much springtime so far?
It's been really nice because we got on the temp site, which is our alternate rowing location south of the city of Lewiston. We use the Bell Farms, or the Bell family allows us to launch from one of their farm locations, which is real nice of them. But we got on March 4th. We were on the water, which is more than a month earlier than last year. And we actually just got on the water in Green yesterday. So March 21st, we were on the water in Green, which is about 3 weeks ahead of what we did last year. So it's been nice getting that additional water time. It's been a little inconsistent, very cold some days. A lot of darkness before the time change that we had to kind of deal with, which really cut some of the sessions short. But the one thing we can't do is use the excuse that we had last year, which is not having had any water time, going to regattas and having no expectations or little expectations. But it's different this year around. They have to have some expectations because they don't have the excuse of not having had water for the last 2-3 weeks.
I know a couple weeks ago you went down to Florida for some scrimmages, I guess, right? How'd that go for the men and women?
Well, when we go down there for that, it's purely training. The scrimmaging that we did was only at the end of the week. One scrimmage with Nova Southeastern for the women. A scrimmage is not a 2K race. What we did was we essentially do a practice together. So 2 6-minute pieces, 2 4-minute pieces, and 2 2-minute pieces, all at a controlled pace. So it's not a flat-out race. No one's really ready for it at that point of the year anyway, and we're at the end of a training week. So it's like it was the, whatever it would be, 11th practice for us in 5 days. So that was why we do it that way. And the guys, unfortunately, weren't able to have their scrimmage with FIT, which is a great program that won the Dadville Regatta last year. And we couldn't get it together because of class schedules on the FIT side and transportation issues for us. So it didn't work out.
Well, so I guess at this point, though, you probably have your women's varsity 8 pretty much settled upon, men's varsity 8 as well. So tell us, who's the women's varsity 8? Who are the returnees? Who are the newcomers?
We don't actually look at the women's varsity 8 as just an 8. We call it the V16.
Oh, fair enough.
Because it does it takes 16 women to go and win a national championship and 2 really good coxswains. So the majority of the group is from the last year's group. But what I've been doing is I set the varsity 8 early, which we basically set in Florida, and then focus on the sort of the next 8 women, so the 9 through 16, and then the 17 through 24, right? So we focus on that group of women in order to make sure we know that we have the right 16 people in that NCAA group. And I think we're pretty close to that now, but as we've had early water, we've had some more results, and we're able to have some women move themselves around, some reveal themselves, and others get exposed as you go through the racing season. And that's just the way it is. And on the guys' side, having the greatest results in program history last year because they won the New England Championships, 6 out of that 8 return, and they are in the exact same locations in the boat. And so the 2 guys that have come in, we have a freshman in the stroke seat, which is a real big deal. We got a sophomore who took over the 2 seat, and that boat, nothing's ever set for sure, but it's a very tight boat, and I don't think they lost any speed. If anything, they're gaining a little bit more. So,
obviously, a very team oriented, not so much how individuals. It's hard to see which individuals stand out, but who are the coxswains, I guess, this year, because they're kind of in a unique role, right?
They are, and again, we didn't graduate any coxswains. So Marit Wetstein is the men's varsity 8 coxswain. She's also one of the men's captains, so she's hold on to that spot pretty well. And on the women's side, we have 2 very good coxswains, in Abby Bierman, who's currently the 2V cox, and Kate Traquina, who's the 1V cox. But I see them both as being, the varsity 16 coxswain, so to speak. I look at them as one, and when it comes down to it, we have to find the personality that's going to fit the crew the best. So there are occasions where you have a better coxswain in a second boat role. It's rare, but it's out there, and we keep that open, as an option if we need to.
I know, because you mentioned you focus on really the varsity 16, right, yeah, for the women in particular, because last year, as we all know, it was the second boat that really did it for you guys, right, in terms of clinching the title and whatnot. And so is that point of emphasis to the newcomers, the first years in the program, to say, hey, don't worry necessarily about being varsity 8, it's really about the 16.
Exactly. Yeah, we do talk a lot about that because the varsity 8 is the crew that has to absorb all that pressure and expectation. And the second 8 is the crew that has to do its job. It must have those points that come from the second 8, even though when you look at the point totals, there aren't that many points that the JV 8 can gather. But those 2 points can make all the difference, which was the case with last year. So finishing first or finishing second is a difference of 2 points, but it can mean everything. And I think that we have the culture of the program in a place where it is understood that making that V16 is the goal, and not getting caught up in the ego of being in the V8.
And how as a coach, I guess, when it is so team oriented and they're working together as a unit, on the river and whatnot, how as a coach do you try to determine like maybe that 16th athlete as opposed to number 17? I mean, when it is such team oriented, how do you tell which individuals are truly thriving and which are maybe struggling more?
We do a lot of training indoors and on those rowing machines, so we get a lot of information that way. We get a lot from going to Florida, what happened that week. People with illnesses and injuries come along, and they come and go, so to speak. But it just comes down to everyone understanding that you do have to perform every day, and every single day is an opportunity. And when we get on the water as early as we have, we've been able to do some comparisons. But we stress with them that they cannot wait for anything to happen. They can't wait for an opportunity. They have to perform on every single day, regardless of which boat that they're in. So if all of a sudden the 2V isn't going well, and I'm watching the crew and it just isn't moving well, I'll look at Coach Doolittle and I'll say, what's going on in the 3V? Because they'll be moving really well for some reason. And when that is going on, even if it's not a race-style piece, not a competitive piece, we might move someone from one boat to the other, even for the sake of the coaches seizing the opportunity, right? Because something's happening over there in that third boat that is making sense, and the boat is moving well. And there's something happening in the second boat that is not making sense and not moving well. So we try to identify what that is by making a change.
And then, throughout the regatta season, obviously we were just getting started this weekend, but I mean, which are the regattas that particularly maybe stand out? Are there ones that are more important than others, or are they all pretty much equal leading up to NCAAs for the women?
I wouldn't say that they're all equal. I'm sure that the athletes themselves kind of have their favorite races, but one that's really important for us is, of course, the President's Cup. Is something we look forward to, and it being the very personal and close rival that we have with Colby and Bowdoin, it's something that we take seriously. Even though we have a nice long string of wins, none of that is taken for granted. But in terms of the rest of the schedule coming up, on April 2nd, the men and the women both have a chance to race the Harvard Lightweights, which is new for us and very exciting because they're perennial top-level Division I programs, and the fact that they're lightweights doesn't mean anything at all to us. So it should be good competition, and we're hoping to hang with both of those crews.
And I know we talked before how the women's side, it's an NCAA sport, so there's the NCAA national title, obviously, that you guys won last year. The men's side, not an NCAA sport. I mean, does that change anything at all, really? Is it just really about the goals and whatnot? I mean, and is there any possibility down the road it could become one? Or, I mean, just big picture, I guess.
I wouldn't say that it changes much of anything in our approach. From a coaching standpoint, it changes that I kind of have the men and the women on two slightly different calendars as we're going into the final phases of the season. And I'll spend a little more time with the men going into, say, New England Championships and then the ECAC because that's the end of their season no matter what. Right. So they could win that big regatta called the National Invitational Rowing Championship. They could win that, and no matter what happens, they're done. We actually have a little bit of legislation on the books right now trying to allow the winning NESCAC school to accept a bid into what's called the IRA regatta, which would be the national championship for men's rowing that has been going on for 100 and something years. So if we went there, we'd be racing all Division I, all Ivy League, the top of the cream of the crop sort of thing. So we wouldn't be going there with the expectation of winning a national championship, right? Because it's just, it's just out of our reach, and you got to know your limitations, right? But it would be a great opportunity if like last year we could have accepted that. Hobart College, which is also D3, they finished ahead of us at last year's championship regatta, So they accepted that bid and ended up finishing, I think, 16th or 17th, which, we would have been a few seconds behind them.
Interesting. Okay. And then I know we're all very excited about the new boathouse getting built that's going to be done in the fall. I mean, how will that change things for you from a practice side and strategy and whatnot?
It'll mean we have electricity, and it'll mean we have heat, and we have locker rooms.
All good things.
Yeah. No, it'll change things, I think, in terms of recruiting
Right.
and all that. But we're doing a lot to make sure that we don't lose sight of where we came from. And that we don't need a big, beautiful facility in order to win regattas. Obviously, we've already been able to prove that. You can do that from a pole barn with a dirt floor. But it does upgrade the program to where it should be. The team has earned this, to say the least. But really, it's a safety feature, and it allows us to do some additional training out there. It allows the boats to stay safer and keep everything indoors the way they should be. Gives me a repair bay that so we can fix our own equipment, which we haven't been able to do yet. And we'll have a team room out there so we can do some video analysis. That's been very difficult to do because the athletes are very busy and they have to find time to come into the office and watch a little video, and it's hard to do.
Well, that should be great. And maybe though the key to the success was the lack of electricity. We'll find out, I guess.
If that's the case, I'll turn the lights off.
All right. Well, Feeders, Teamsters, thanks so much. We're looking forward to the Murphy Cup this weekend, the entire rowing season for the men and the women.
The 6th-ranked men's lacrosse team is home this Wednesday at 5 o'clock against Keene State, and they're home Saturday as well when they take on Williams at 1 o'clock. Meanwhile, the 13th-ranked women's lacrosse team visits Williams this Saturday at noon. Women's tennis is at Babson this Wednesday, and baseball visits Salem State for a doubleheader on Saturday. We'll recap it all next time on the Bates Bobcast.